For our second virtual town hall. My name's Laura. I am the director of events here, so I'm just going to get things started and then turn it over to our speakers for the day. Just for everyone's reference, the event is being recorded. Just for future sharing, for anyone who couldn't join us today, we'll be sharing this link within the next couple of days. If you do have questions throughout, feel free to use the chat box over on the right. We will have some time at the end of the presentation where the speakers can answer your questions. If we run out of time, we'll certainly follow up with you and make sure we get you all the information you've requested. And all the lines will be muted if you're not speaking. And now I'd just like to turn it over to Sarah Hertz to get things started.
Thanks, Laura, and thank you, everybody. Welcome. We're pleased you made the time to join us today. Thanks for your patience while we dealt with a couple technical issues. After our first virtual town hall 2 weeks ago, we heard that there's interest in learning more about how we're sourcing food right now. It's a topic that has had a lot of prominence in the media. We've all seen the pictures of the milk being poured away, and just in Monday's Inquirer, there was an article about a farmer who was on the brink of having to euthanize about 80,000 of his chickens because the meal production company that usually takes his yolks had no more storage space to do so. Fortunately, thanks to social media and a good neighbor, the chickens were saved. But it is a good indicator of the situation we're facing right now. So we're excited to share an in-depth look at our food operation with you today. You'll learn that this crisis is actually pushing Philabundance to adapt and to get really creative and innovative in finding ways to feed our community. Many of the things that we're trying today may actually benefit our business model in the longer term. Your support has been tremendous in allowing us this flexibility to continue our work in an ever-changing environment, and I wanted to thank you again for that. I'd also like to take a minute before we get started to welcome our new leader, Lori D. Jones, for making the time to join us on this call today. Lori is in our virtual audience. She officially starts with Philabundance on June 2nd, but she's already hard at work learning the complexities of our work, and we're really thrilled that that Lori is joining the Philabundance family. Today, our discussion is going to touch on how the food industry supply chain works for Philabundance under normal circumstances, how we're adapting our systems to meet this increased demand for food amid a reduced supply. And we'll also hear, hopefully, from one of Philabundance's critical supply partners on his view of the issues. And I say hopefully because that's where our technical challenge is lying. So we hope we can sort that out. We do welcome your questions at the end. As Laura mentioned earlier, please feel free to use the chat bar on the right-hand side of your screen to post questions. I'd like to introduce today's speakers. Maria Maggio will be our moderator. Maria is a native of Philadelphia and has been in the food business for most of her career as a manufacturer, a distributor, and a restaurateur. She has been with Food Trade News, a print and digital publication covering the retail food business in the northeastern US for more than 10 years. Larry Walker is the president of Balford, which is a food distribution company that sells dairy products marketed under the Rosenberger's dairy brand and provides custom distribution services to food service and retail customers throughout the Northeast. Larry has 20 years of progressive experience in the food industry and has worked for a variety of well-known companies, including Pepsi and Nestle and Dean Foods. Balford Foods has been working very closely with Philabundance over the past year, and Larry will talk more about this program, which also features Starbucks and FoodShare. Both Maria and Larry sit on the Philabundance Food Advisory Council, which is a group of volunteers in the food industry that generously give their time and counsel to us at Philabundance. Also today on the panel today is Kait Bowdler, who's the Director of Sustainability here at Philabundance, and Phil Ginterreiter, who heads up our major food acquisition team for us. That's our roster for today. We're now going to share a short introductory video from Grist, which is a national nonprofit news outlet that focuses on issues of environmental concern. But this film gives a really good overview of the food industry supply chain.
All right, everybody, I apologize for the technical difficulties. Just give me one more minute here.
Hi, this is Kate. While Lara's looking to get the video started, I guess a quick intro. Sarah and I both saw this video, and I think a lot of the questions that came up the last time we did this call, this video really highlights all of those questions and makes it so you understand a little bit more that it's not just as easy as, oh, well, there's food over here and there's need over here. There really is so many kinks in that chain that can go wrong, which is where all the issues come for us.
All right, our video is now available, so I apologize, and I'm going to turn us back off here.
Okay.
This is toilet paper. In addition to its other use, it's become a bit of a symbol for the COVID-19 pandemic.
Shelves are empty all across this area.
Showed up today and it's just chaos. For days, this has been the picture of America.
And it's not just toilet paper in short supply. It's the same story for food items like beans, pasta, flour. But the problem isn't that we don't have enough food. And the numbers show it's not panic buying either. So what's going on? The problem is the supply chain, the path from the field to your pantry. COVID-19 is exposing the weak links in the chain. Let's start at the beginning using tomatoes as an example. We have enough food. We're growing enough tomatoes for everybody. But it takes people to harvest them. Farms often rely on a lot of seasonal workers from other countries. Because of the pandemic, the State Department has cut back on the number of visas that it's issuing. While the government is still trying to issue some seasonal visas, a smaller workforce would mean more food gets left in the field. Next, the food needs to be processed. That applies to everything from canning these tomatoes to butchering meat. If a worker in a big processing warehouse comes down with COVID-19, it can knock out big portions of the supply chain. That's already starting to happen. Major meat plants have had to shut down because of outbreaks in their facilities. If more of these outbreaks happen, that could mean less food moving through the system. So normally after processing, the food would go to both grocery stores and restaurants. But now, with restaurants closed, everyone is eating at home. Restaurant sales are way down, and grocery sales are way up. And it's not like we can just ship the food from one to the other. The factories making those industrial-sized cans of tomato sauce are struggling to switch over to your regular size. That bottleneck is driving the price of groceries way up. For example, here's the cost of eggs now compared to a year ago. So more people than ever are struggling to buy groceries at the same time as tomatoes are rotting in the fields. And it's the same story for toilet paper too. No TP needed for all those shuttered offices and businesses. You can maybe see why some shelves are empty. The US is still producing more than enough. It's just getting dumped, held up, or sent the wrong way. American grocery supply chains are great at shipping stuff cheaply and quickly, but they're vulnerable to big shakeups like coronavirus. And this pandemic could serve as a warning. Climate change will cause major disruptions to our supply chains. Because no matter the crisis, whether it's a pandemic or a hurricane or a drought, everybody eats and everybody poops.
All right, everyone, and now I'm going to turn it over to Maria to lead our discussion.
Thank you, and welcome, Lori. I'm delighted to be joining the Philabundance team today in taking a look at the challenges facing the food industry at this time. So to start, Phil and Kait, why don't you talk about how Philabundance has traditionally secured food for your clients?
Good afternoon. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Traditionally, we get a lot of our food, most of our food, through donations. But the value of the food donations that we get year over year is roughly $35 million. We get this through relationships with farms, manufacturers, importers, retailers, wholesalers, and through community food drives, such as I'm sure many of you have heard of the WMMR Camp Out for Hunger. That is a huge source of dry donated food. When we do get these donation offers, we have an internal process that allows that food safety standards are being met. We have an inventory control, quality control team that my staff works very closely with. And what we do is we vet every donation to make sure that it meets food safety guidelines, that it's going to be safe to eat, that we can distribute it in time before it goes bad, that it meets packaging packaging needs, so that we can store things safely in our warehouses and be able to distribute them to our agency network with plenty of time for our agency network to distribute those to clients that they serve.
Hi.
Kait?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm happy that I'm here to talk to you all again. Again, I'm Kait Bowdler, Director of Sustainability for Philabundance, and Phil and I's teams are both small but mighty, and we work like partners or two pieces of a puzzle. So Phil's team really focuses on the large tractor trailer loads from distributors and those big items that need storage and actually, like this picture, palletized and come back to our warehouse. My team, on the other hand, really focuses on things that go direct out to our agency network. So again, just a brief overview, our agency network is spread across 9 counties in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. So the Philadelphia County and the 4 surrounding that, as well as 4 counties in New Jersey. Within that, there are about 360 agency members. And when we say agency, that's a catch-all term for a church pantry, a emergency kitchen, and others like that. So a lot of them do household provisioning, meaning they provide food that people can take home and cook at their house. But we also do a lot that are also on-site feeders, which is our term for any agency that's preparing meals for clients to eat at their site. So what that looks like for us is very similar to that video that we just saw, trying to match our supply of food where we find it to our demand. And my team is really focused on retail rescue. And retail rescue for us, our largest portion of it is 10 million pounds of food annually from our grocery store partners. So banners like Acme and Giant and ShopRite and others like that, and all of their stores across the area. They're fantastic partners. I think we have about 280 individual stores that participate in this program right now. And then what my team does is we pair them with agencies within our network, and we match up both, again, that schedule of when they have food to donate and their surplus from that wasn't able to be sold for one reason or other, and we match it to an agency that can use that product. The other part that we're doing, and we'll talk more about with Larry when he comes on, is our newest program, which is called Emerging Retail. And that now accounts for about 1 million pounds of our product every year. And that's anything that's direct to clients. And it's, for us, it's highly perishable product. It's sandwiches, it's meals, it's things like the Starbucks program, where there's a lot of food available, but it's in small quantities. Reading Terminal Market, the airport, and how do we, that provides a whole other logistical challenge of getting those small amounts of food to our agencies again. So my team is kind of, I guess they're the control system for pilots. So how do we manage the food and making sure it's kind of working as it should throughout the week?
And can you two talk about what's different now during the crisis?
So what's different now is definitely we're dealing with more food at the moment, and it's a challenge getting it. So we do rely very heavily on donations for the food that we distribute to our agency network, but there is a purchasing component that's always been part of our food sourcing plan. I just double checked the numbers before I came on this call, and this year we had planned to purchase about 5.7 million pounds worth of food on a budget where we expected to receive about 33 million pounds of food. So it was roughly a sixth of our budget, between a fifth and a sixth that we expected to purchase. And since the crisis has come down, that has exploded. Short term, on the dry shelf stable side, there was a run on every vendor that we've dealt with, and very much like that described in the video, there was supply chain issues. Typically, I could go to a vendor and receive a truckload of dry, shelf-stable, canned fruits, vegetables, that sort of thing, and have it in the warehouse inside of a week, at most 2 weeks. And those lead times immediately exploded to almost 2 months. And some things even longer for staples like rice. I believe there was a 9-week lead time at one point. So everyone was trying to buy at the same time, and our vendors that are used to dealing with food banks were definitely feeling the strain. So we continued to find other vendors that could help. We've also relied heavily on Feeding America. They are very strong in being able to procure those dry shelf stable things because they have relationships with national manufacturers and allow us to order through their system, which also helps streamline the process so that manufacturers aren't dealing with, individual food banks, they're dealing with Feeding America. So that has helped. For us, as an organization, our reputation has definitely helped us maximize the amount of donations that we were getting. Large companies within the region would come to us first, and we would be able to, if we couldn't metabolize that food immediately ourselves, we could help send that out to the network. A good example of that is our relationship with the local ports and the Mid-Atlantic Regional Co-op, the MARC. We entered into a more formal relationship with them around soliciting from the port earlier this year, and that's paying dividends now. We're able to maximize every pound that's being offered out of the port between our two organizations. In terms of food budget, this year we had a purchasing budget of roughly $1.4 million. I can say right now I have at least that much in COVID-specific food purchases, either in the warehouse or on orders now. So roughly the dry spend has been at least double, maybe triple what we would normally do. And on the produce side, I would say it's been as high as 8-fold from what we would do in a normal year. And that's to support our own increased distributions internally, but also our partnership with the city of Philadelphia. We provide roughly 300,000 pounds of produce to them every week. They are running a box build where they're distributing produce boxes to 40 different sites every week, and we're providing all the produce for that. So there's a lot of money being spent right now, and we're bringing in an enormous amount of food at a very rapid pace. Produce seems to be a little more accessible. We are worried that we're going to see some prices go up. Hasn't happened yet, and we're kind of riding the wave of the supply, and we can be flexible with that. And on the dry side, we're starting to see those vendors that we deal with resupply a little bit. So it's less of a concern with the dry stuff. We have a steady stream of product coming into our warehouses now because we started making purchases weeks ago. And as they come online, the lead times aren't as much to get over because we just keep ordering product to come in behind it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think from our side, what I'll add to Phil's comments are exactly what he was saying. Our purchasing is increasing significantly, as well as all of our donated product at this point. I think the challenge, and why I love that video so much, is that it highlights that you can have both, to use the phrase, a feast and a famine at the same time. So both of those things can be true, where we have additional product in some areas, but we're also having declines in other areas. So retail rescue, for us, a source of food that has been a huge staple because it provides product across all of the categories that all of our agencies typically want. So dairy, produce, protein, bread, shelf-stable items, canned goods, all of those products from one source. So it's a really easy way for our agencies to get all of the food that they want to feed their clients. We're now actually at about still 60% below our target for monthly numbers traditionally. Now, here's the additional problem. Those are our forecast targets before all of COVID happened. So that was what our normal demand was. That was our normal operations we tried to work with. But we know normal is out the window at this point. So demand, we can't even begin to discuss what the real demand is. It's just a matter of how quickly we can catch up to it while also still being cognizant of our own capacity constraints. So can we warehouse it? Can we have the trucks to pick it up? Can we manage it? And I think that's really where we're at right now, is just adapting as things continue to change. So I think for us, it's planning for what's the next opportunity, what's the next change. My team has definitely shifted to figure out, okay, if there's not as much we can do on the retail side, how else can we support the organization? Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think we have Larry with us now. Larry, can you talk about what you've seen in the industry during the crisis and your experience with the current food supply chain issues? Do we have him, Kate?
Okay, go ahead. So Larry's going to join us on audio.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, Maria. Thank you.
Hi,
And
you're welcome.
joining the call. So for me, I think the first thing I've seen, and I want to recognize. Okay.
Go ahead.
Is the dedication, sacrifice, and tremendous efforts I've seen take place across the food industry ecosystem over the past 2 months, from the farms and plants, the warehouses and distribution centers, the operators, store associates, and the organizations and volunteers that are working tirelessly to provide safe, quality food to feed our communities and those in need during this unprecedented time has just been tremendous. And then I also have seen and want to recognize the many companies and individuals who have stepped up their giving efforts and are working creatively to find ways to also help the communities and those in need. For us at Balford, our supply chain experience through this pandemic overall has been one that's met or exceeded our expectations, primarily because of the strength of our local dairy contract manufacturing network, our customers' flexibility and support, and our employees' safety as we've managed through the waves of change, while at the same time being able to safely and consistently provide our customers with the goods and services they need to run their businesses.
Okay. And Kate and Larry, can you talk about the Balford Starbucks Philabundance relationship, how it came to be, and why it's been a very successful pilot?
Yes.
You with us, Larry?
I can't
Yep.
hear. There.
So, Maria, before getting into that question, I would say that Balford's relationship overall with Philabundance is unique in that we're able to interact in a few different areas. One is a food donor through the Rosenberger's dairy business. But within this area, we donate consumer-ready fresh dairy product types to Philabundance, where they can redistribute. But we also can donate food service dairy product types to the Philabundance Community Kitchen for their efforts. And then the second way, which we'll talk more about, is the way we interact with Philabundance as an operational partner to Starbucks through their food share initiative, where Starbucks donates unused food daily to Feeding America through Philabundance, and Balford, as the Starbucks store delivery provider and operational partner, rescues the food from stores daily and redistributes that food back to Philabundance each day, who in turn is able to provide that fresh, ready-to-eat food to its network and help those people in need, which has been a great partnership, and it's been working very well. We're almost coming up on a 1-year mark.
That's great.
Yeah, I want to just echo what Larry's saying. I also think it's a really good example to contrast with our current situation. So the partnership with Starbucks actually has been in the works for over 3 years since I first started at Philabundance, and it was a huge challenge for us. The first initial iteration of that program was there were, I think at the time, 96 Starbucks stores for us to potentially rescue from. And the goal was for Philabundance to send our trucks or to have our agencies go out directly and pick up from those stores every night, 7 days a week. That is not what Philabundance does. That is not our strength always. I think we have so much going on that trying to rescue small amounts of food from such a large, diverse location of stores was really difficult for us. So there was a lot of back and forth trying to figure out how do we do that program. And then I think, yes, once Balford entered into the partnership, I think this was, probably last summer, Larry, when we first started talking about it, and we went, I think, under a month of here's an idea and let's plan and figure this out. And we added more stores. It's at 188 stores, I believe, under normal circumstances. And Balford can go and pick that up for us because that is their strength and they do that really well. And then they can deliver it all to us. And then we worry about the distribution. So it allows us to each focus our efforts on the things that we do well and really serve our community better. And also allow for flexibility. So we've tried out a lot of new types of partnerships with them. This is the first time we've ever done what we call dark drops, where Balford drops product off to us on a Saturday and holidays and days when we're not open. So again, flexibility wise, we're not always able to operate at those times, but because Balford has been such a significant and amazing partner, it allows us to have a lot more access to food. And they can quickly help us when challenges arise. So that's been amazing. To compare, I don't know, Larry, if you had something else you wanted to say there, or else I was going to talk about some other innovation we've done.
Yeah. So I echo, the same thoughts and feelings you have on the program and how, how it's worked. I think I just would like to also share that for us who work with different geographies and have different options for giving partnerships, there's some great things that Philabundance brings to Balford as a community partner, and it helps guide us, prioritize the relationship, whether it's through donating food, the engagement from all the staff and the work that Scott Smith's done, and then the opportunity to be part of the Food Industry Advisory Council. I think it helps us as an ecosystem find ways to continue to work to support the mission of Philabundance and, what our company mission is as well. So I do want to recognize and thanks the entire Philabundance team to help us prioritize our efforts. And, we feel great about the direction that we're going and, look forward to the future. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, that was an amazing point. I agree. I think the Food Advisory Council, of which Maria is also a part of, has been hugely important to us because it allows us to ask so many questions to a key audience to say, okay, what's going on with this trend? How do we prepare for this? This is our next opportunity. Here's food. They were the key group we started reaching out to immediately when COVID-19 happened to start saying, what are you guys seeing? Where are the gaps in the food system? How are you planning for all of these things so that we can learn and develop our systems based off of theirs? We're a microcosm of what they do.
Okay. Both Kait and Phil, are our member agencies asking for anything more or different during the crisis than they needed previously?
So they're definitely asking for more.
Really?
That is something that a lot of our agencies are saying, increased clientele, and we are, working with them to meet their increased need. I think different is more of an example of just the world that we're in with COVID-19 versus any other crisis that we would face, and that everything is being done 6 feet apart, and that changes a lot of the ways that we do things. So to be able to go to an agency and say, okay, we'll give you a bunch of extra food might not always be the easiest solution for them, because agencies have to pack that food up into a box now and be able to give it to somebody in sort of a no-touch distribution versus an agency that used to run a pantry where they would have multiple people coming through the same space at the same time. So we've had to adjust and shift the types of products that we offer the agencies, give them at the very least the tools and materials they would need to be able to build their own boxes, and in the best of circumstances, be able to source pre-made boxes so that those agencies are able to distribute without any labor put into it at their part. So it's definitely, those are the two biggest hurdles that we're trying to overcome right now, is just much more food than we're normally used to distributing to them more often, and doing it in a way that allows them to continue to serve the need and do so as safely as possible.
Okay.
Yeah, I would echo all those points from my side too. I think the biggest, some of the things to start with are, as Phil mentioned, we are supporting the city distribution sites. So that means that our trucks are being tasked to do a lot more deliveries than we would normally. And at the same time, initially, a third of our agencies had to close. I think a lot of them have now opened back up, which has been fantastic. Now that they feel a little more comfortable, they have the supplies in place, and they are able to do low contact distributions. So things are changing, but we've also had to be a lot more flexible. So for retail rescue, typically we might have sent some of our trucks out to go pick up that product and drop it off to agencies. Unfortunately, we're not able to do that all the time right now. So we've been pairing them a lot more with other temporary agencies that may be able to do those pickups. We've been starting new partnerships with Food Connect and Sharing Access to help have them use some of their volunteers to pick up from our donors and drop off to our agencies. So again, it's that nice pairing of everything. And we were trying new things. So Steve from my team is actually going to be doing a virtual training for a new Target store that's going to be onboarded this Thursday. And hopefully as that model develops, we can start doing more of those where we can engage new donors to start participating in the program. Because I think as we're all adjusting to this new normal, it's allowing for us to find these opportunities for innovation. Two other innovations that I wanted to talk about briefly were CFAP. So this is the USDA is starting a new program, if you haven't heard about it, but it's coronavirus farmers assistance program with the goal to support more farmers and regional partners. At the same time, it's allowing us to take opportunities and advantage of food that may have gone to waste and match it with the need that us and other agencies are seeing in the charitable food system. So it's an amazing program. The big challenge there is it is very quick. I think we found out about it maybe 2 weeks ago. The bids were awarded to partners like Balford and others Friday. And this week we are quickly trying to figure out exactly how much of the different products that are available we can take. To give you a sense of scale and our initial planning numbers, it's an additional 2.7 million pounds of food per month. That is what we normally would do in a month. So we are essentially doubling our operations plus all of the other COVID operations we've been doing. And the first half, our normal distributions, we've had 30 years to figure out how to do that properly and effectively. We've had a week to figure this out. So I think that's been interesting, and it's been really amazing to see how we're testing a lot of our assumptions about what agencies can take, how our distributor partners will work with us, and really trying out a lot of new tools. So I think, again, some of the things we learned from working with Balford and that Starbucks project has now informed the way that we are doing the CFAP program. So I think I've been really excited by that.
I'd like to add on to what Kate said about doubling what we're doing. It's actually closer to triple. Looking at April's numbers, we expected to do around 2.73 million pounds in distributions, and we were over 4.5 million pounds. And that was before the extra 2.7 that we're doing with CFAP. So it's going to be closer to 7 million in a month.
So no big deal, just an average day. But I think that has been amazing at how quickly everyone's been adapting and just kind of digging in with us and being like, okay, let's talk, let's figure this out, let's get through this. Because I think we're also aligned on that we need to do this. I think that has been really amazing for us to see. And has also now informed even more opportunities. So we're also looking at a program with US Foods to potentially take some of their product. This would be, normally it's the food service pack size that I think I mentioned during our last call of those 40-pound boxes of frozen chicken that are need to all be thawed at once. And you can't give out 40 pounds of frozen chicken to an individual. So how do we do something with product like that and others that would have normally gone to food service and now take advantage of it? So what we've been developing, and my team is also working on right now, is looking at other partners, including our own agencies, and employing them to turn that product into meals. And so then we can distribute meals. Because back to Maria, your point, I think one of the big changes in need we're seeing is a lot of meals are needed because a lot of seniors are homebound, or others that have disabilities, or that they're immunocompromised. So we're trying to make sure this is an area we've never really done. We don't do meals at this scale. So this is another area where we're building out that capacity because we're hearing a need, and we're also hearing opportunities to partner with others on it. So we're going to try it.
It's great. It's good news. All good news.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. I did want to take a couple minutes before we run over here and just turn it over, have some questions from our viewers. First off, Ian, Bill or Kate, if you want to jump in here, are there any other organizations locally or regionally that can duplicate what we're doing?
You got that, Bill?
Yeah, I just had to unmute myself. There are there are several. I think that would be Share. They serve an enormous amount of people within the Philadelphia area as well, and we have been in close contact with them throughout this crisis. They are also helping at the city site, so We are providing all the produce that goes into the 40 site distributions once a week, and they're providing all the dry product that goes to those same 40 sites another day of the week. So there's 2 distributions per week, and we're working in partnership to continue to provide the city with food. So that would be the biggest and best example. I mentioned earlier the MARC, the Mid-Atlantic Regional Co-op. Now they serve food banks, but they are we're close partners with them, and they help metabolize all of the donated produce and some perishables that are coming through the region, and help the shares and us and other food banks from throughout the eastern seaboard, and as far west as like Pittsburgh, further west than that, and so they help spread the wealth as it is. So the stuff that's coming out of our region is serving other food banks, close by as well.
Yeah, I think that's the key value that Philabundance adds, is because we're part of Feeding America and those other food banks that Phil mentioned. If there's really large items, we can source up throughout that Feeding America network. And then also if there's smaller items, we also have our agency network that can handle that. So I think that's been working really well for us, is because we have flexibility to handle those different items. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, thank you. If there are other questions, we can certainly get to those answers afterwards, but did want to wrap up. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So I'm just going to turn it back to Sarah Hertz to final remarks.
Great, thank you. Thank you to all of our speakers, and thank you everybody for joining us, and particularly for bearing with us with some of our technical challenges. I can see there were a couple more questions on the chat, and we'll respond to all of them in a follow-up email. I especially want to thank Maria and Larry, but also my colleagues Kait and Phil, all of whom are juggling many priorities, but generously share their time and expertise to better inform all of us today. If you were able to join us for our last town hall 2 weeks ago, thank you for that as well. You will receive a survey after this. Please let us know how we can make these events better and more informative for you. We have 2 more town halls scheduled for May 27th and June 10th with topics currently to be determined. Your feedback helps us select the topics, so feel free to share what's on your mind. There's no doubt that the increased demand for food we're seeing is going to continue for some time to come, and is likely to increase. We're at Philabundance really working to manage our financial situation in a way that allows us to both meet the demands of today, but also recognizing that high likelihood of increased demand against a weakened economy in the months to come. And none of us has the skills to know what's really going to be happening, but it doesn't look pretty. Our work doesn't happen without your support. So thank you again for your partnership and for placing your trust in Philabundance. As we like to say on lighter days, we are grateful. Thank you, and please stay safe.